The new AP poll came out on Monday, and as of their release, UConn would not be a number one seed if the AP voters had their way. I'll tell you what's wrong with this picture. This is Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On UConn. I am Matt Schonvisky, a two-time graduate, 10-year credential media member, and host of the only daily UConn sports podcast, Locked On UConn, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you for making this your first listen each and every single day. On today's show, I've got a beef with the AP voters and how this UConn team is not a number one seed as of the release of this poll for the upcoming NCAA tournament. It's just ridiculous to me. We'll talk about that. Then, the women continue to roll over the weekend as Sarah Strong looks 100%. Why? They will dominate the rest of the way as Texas almost faltered at Tennessee. We'll recap the rest of the way for the women. And finally, I'll recap a busy sports weekend for the Huskies across all sports, and this includes baseball, hockey, softball. But first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. I tried to rack my brain around this. The AP poll came out on Monday, and UConn rose from 6 to 5 in the AP poll. Moved up one spot. I have no idea why they were 6 in the first place. Doesn't make sense to me. They're 24-2. They should be a top 4 team. They should be a number one seed in the NCAA tournament as of today. As of today. Their only loss was the previously unbeaten Arizona. Down 2 players. Their only full-strength loss was on the road at St. John's. A game that, yes, they didn't look their best. But St. John's is now number 17. Previously unranked. The AP poll had St. John's previously unranked, the number 2 team in the Big East, which tells me everything I need to know about this poll. They value and look at the Big East like the WCC with Gonzaga and St. Mary's. That's what the Big East has become in the eyes of the AP voters, in my opinion. It's become a 2-horse race where UConn and St. John's are the old Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Each and every single year. It's gotten to a point where it's a little bit ridiculous that a team that's 24-2, one conference loss, again, to a top 20 team on the road against Rick Pitino and a team that is on the rise, is not a number one seed because of what the AP voters view as a down Big East, which, yes, the conference is down. The conference top to bottom is not what the WCC was. Now, I get that ESPN and a lot of the top prognosticators look at Power 4 only. So we're looking at the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10 for all our sports, for all our teams that we want to vote. UConn is in the Big East. UConn has run through every single school that has faced 2 of the last 3 years on the way to the national title. UConn almost took out the national championship team a year ago in Florida. The closest game Florida had up until the national championship. And UConn's viewed as this WCC team. That's how I'm interpreting this. Number 5. 2 losses. Put UConn today up against Arizona. Fully healthy. Neutral court. In Tucson. I don't care where you play. UConn's going to come out on top in that game, in my opinion. Michigan, okay. Houston, Duke, Arizona. UConn, I guess you want to roll some dice to see who comes out on top. I mean, I guess that's what the AP's doing. But to me, UConn's getting shafted because of their conference affiliation. And you know how seeding is very important come NCAA tournament time. It's why I'm making this a big deal. Because we're seeing it in the AP voters. We're seeing it in the coaches as well. UConn's number 5. They didn't move up or down. It's a problem. It's a problem that UConn can go on a run like it did. Have the season that they've had. Are there things to fix that, like we talked about in yesterday's show on the rebounding side? Of course. The fact of the matter remains, UConn is going out and winning games. Kansas, Florida, BYU. Illinois. And the perception of this team is not going to change between now and the end of the year because UConn doesn't play an out-of-conference game, and we see how the voters are perceiving the Big East. This is a 3-team, probably a 3-team bid. 3-bid team. 3-bid league, excuse me. UConn, St. John's, Villanova. If UConn stumbles at Villanova, what, are they going to be out of the top 10? Because of what the Big East is viewed as? It's an issue. It's an issue that UConn can run the table like they are, have 2 losses, and not be a 1 seed. Houston, Duke, Arizona, Michigan. Those are your number 1 seeds as of today in the AP voters' minds. And UConn's on the outside looking in for a top spot in the tournament because of the perception of their conference. And that's got to be fixed. Either internally, schools need to pony up the money and start competing nationally in this new day and age of college basketball and college sports that Dan Hurley calls the G League. Or UConn needs to take matters into their own hands. So, yeah, rankings came out. UConn's number 5. I'm disappointed. UConn should be disappointed. I think it's a contingent upon them to show these voters the team that they really are, the depth that they really have, and what they're capable of the rest of this regular season. On the other side, we're going to talk about the women who continue to roll. They had their closest game of the season this past weekend in conference play, and we'll recap that after the break. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. Like we talked about yesterday with Alex Caravan and his performance on over this past weekend, Saturday night, where he became the all-time winningest player in UConn history. You don't just become the all-time winningest player in UConn history, a program like no other, just by showing up. Alex Caravan does everything on and off the court. The never say die attitude that he has, the effort that he puts in, the detail he puts into every practice, every preparation, every film review, every play. Caravan reminds us what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra effort off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire and that grit and I never quit attitude. Without Alex Caravan, UConn is not the program they are today. Without Alex Caravan, Dan Hurley may not be here today. So, here at Mazda, we put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Long shot, favorite, adds extra excitement. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Before we enter into the second segment, get Locked On UConn. You can get Locked On UConn ad-free with the Everydayer Club. Plus members only Discord access. Join at lockedonucon.supercast.com if you want to view all episodes ad-free. So back in on Locked On UConn, and we are talking women's basketball as UConn continues to win games. Just so happened this past weekend, the win over Marquette was only a 15-point game. Their closest game in conference play this season. UConn is still not fully healthy. Now, Sarah Strong is back fully healthy, as she showed why she is probably player of the year in the NCAA women's college basketball this season. 22 points. Only had a rebound. 3 steals, 3 blocks. She's got to be better on the glass. Why this game was so good? Why this game was so close? UConn got out-rebounded 42-29 on Saturday in a 71-56 win over Marquette, who entered 10-6 in conference. So UConn improved to 27-0, 16-0 in conference play. Marquette entered 16-9, 10-6 in conference. And UConn got pushed around on the glass. Completely. 42-29. And she's only averaged 23 minutes a game since coming back from the time missed 2 weekends ago. She played 19 minutes against Creighton. Blowout win, 50-point game. Didn't raise an eyebrow to me. Had 1 foul, but again, they were up 50. Finished with 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Had a block. This past Saturday, played 27 minutes. Did not commit a foul. 22 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Her field goal percentage is down. Only shot 45%. Her rebounds are down since returning. Her assists are down since returning. She got 3 blocks, so she's making an impact defensively. But the fact of the matter is, she's averaging 2 rebounds a game since coming back. She averages 7.5 on the year. There is not a game where she had less rebounds this entire season. There's only 1 game where she played 20 minutes over Loyola Chicago, second game of the season, where she only had 3 rebounds. So back-to-back performances where she had 3 and 1. Stand corrected, she had 3 rebounds against St. John's. But she's averaging 7.5, and in back-to-back games, she's had 3 and 1 rebound. Again, only played 23 minutes a game. But it's something to continue to monitor as we move forward here with UConn. But on the offensive end, she hasn't missed a beat from an overall scoring standpoint. Now, Saturday was her lowest percentage, I want to say, of the season. It was. Michigan was her second lowest. So it's by far her lowest percentage shooting of the season. So it's something to keep an eye on here as we move forward. But on the offensive end, AZ continues to do well as well. Led the way, 25 points. Again, leading the way. So, with Blanca still out, and by all accounts, she was supposed to be back after Creighton. I don't know if there's an injury thing here that we need to be worried about, but the fact of the matter remains, I don't see a scenario where UConn is losing a game here the rest of the regular season into the Big East tournament and into the first or second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Now, between now and then, whatever health issues that are happening needs to be fixed or needs to be resolved. I think, just like they were with Sarah Strong, I think they're probably being a little extra cautious with Blanca. She was out there on shoot around before the game against Marquette, signaling, hey, the first step of her coming back. But I worry about, just like we talked about on the men's side, you want somebody that's not coming back from injury right around tournament time. You want them to be in rhythm. You want the rest of the team to be in rhythm in terms of rotations. And that's a concern that I have. Now, between now and second and third weekend of the NCAA tournament, I don't see a situation where UConn is going to be struggling, where UConn is going to be up against it. Now, you can't get out-rebounded like you did against Marquette. That's for sure. And your big's got to be better, just like on the men's side. And this gives an opportunity for Gino during practices to really focus on, hey, where did we not perform? Free throw was not an issue, 88%. They shot 35% from three, 45% from the field. Just got out-rebounded, 42-29. So it's something to keep an eye on here as we continue to go through the regular season. Huskies are on the road at Villanova tomorrow night. Matchup of the top two teams in the Big East. Villanova's 21-5, 14-3 in conference. Marquette, again, was middle of the pack in conference play this year. So the fact that it was a competitive game like it was, I don't think UConn had any lead over 20 in that game. It was 13-10 after one. It was 36-24 at the half. And then the final two quarters, 1 point game, 2 point game. So health to me is something I want to keep an eye on here, continuing. We'll see if Blanca gets back on the court. We'll see how Sarah Strong goes against Villanova on Wednesday. But certainly something to monitor as we continue here. We'll have a full preview of the Villanova game tomorrow. Men, I believe, are back in action tomorrow as well. On the other side of the break, we will go around the athletic department as it was a busy weekend for the UConn Huskies. We'll talk about that on the other side. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I was hiring, I wouldn't want someone who can help. I want someone with real experience who can jump right in without a lot of training, without a lot of handholding. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Back in on this final segment of Locked On UConn, and we are taking a trip around the athletic department on our final segment of today's episode of Locked On UConn. Let's start on the ice. Men's hockey, now unbeaten in their last 5 games, won both of their games up in Maine this past weekend, 2-0 Friday night, followed by an overtime shootout win. 3-3 was the score in regulation. On Friday, Joey Muldowney, Ethan Gardula both netted goals. Ryan Tattle had an assist on both of those goals. And then on Saturday, Jake Richard and Ryan Tattle again with goals, with Jake Richard and Trey Scott netting the shootout winners. So that's men's hockey, 2-0 over the weekend. On the women's side, they're now unbeaten in their last 4. First up, they had a Friday night win, 5-1 over Hampshire, and then they returned to action on Saturday in Boston. Got a 2-0 overtime, or not overtime win, but win in Boston on the road. Tia Chan got both wins in net. She had a strong weekend and continues her stellar performance this year. With the performances this weekend, the men are up to number 10 in the nation, hopping over Cornell, who dropped a game over this past weekend. And on the women's side, UConn remains ranked 6th. So we've got 4 teams right now at UConn ranked top 10. You got men's hockey's 10, women's hockey's 6, men's basketball's 5, and of course, the women's basketball team is number 1 in the nation. So between the hardwood and the ice, UConn is certainly taking care of business. On the diamond, UConn baseball returned to action. They're out in Scottsdale, or were out in Scottsdale this past weekend. They didn't have a great start to the year. They dropped all 3 games, beginning with a 12-2 loss to Nebraska on Friday, returned to action 7-3 loss to Kansas State on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they lost 12-6 to Air Force. They're back in action tonight against Arizona State in Tempe. Before they travel a little further south in Arizona, in Tucson, they start a 4-game series with Arizona of the Big 12, Thursday through Sunday. On the softball side, UConn's now 2-7 on the season. Got their first 2 wins, though, of the year on Friday and Saturday. And they now head to Fort Myers for 5 games, beginning with a game on Friday morning against Wisconsin. So I expect baseball and softball to recover off of slow starts to their year. Baseball, if you remember, started slow last season. I think Jim Penders was definitely looking for a much quicker start. But listen, Nebraska, Kansas State, Air Force, pretty strong start. They got Arizona State and then 4 games with Arizona to prove to themselves here this week. Hopefully they pick up their first win tonight, and then 4 games in Tucson against Arizona. Maybe UConn can return the favor for the basketball loss earlier this season. And on the softball side, same thing. I think I was expecting a much stronger start this year, especially given the performance they've had the last couple of seasons on the softball side of things. But let's see how things turn out. They're back in action, like I said, Friday against Wisconsin. And on the hardwood, men's basketball hosts Creighton on Wednesday at Gamble, 7 p.m. tip. The women also tip at 7 p.m. They're going to be down in Philadelphia at Villanova. So that's a look around the athletic department. We're going to start doing that a bit more here on Locked On UConn. Give you a further sense of just the basketball and football side of things. What else is happening at the athletic department? Because if you think back to January, one of my predictions was somebody is going to pick up another national championship outside of basketball in 2026. And I think on the ice, you're seeing UConn continue to perform and get better as the season progresses. Men's side up to 10. Women's side, they remain at number 6 in the nation. Both top 10 programs. I think that's something to reiterate. And when UConn invests in sports and has the facilities and top-notch conference, UConn continues to perform. Just look at basketball. Just look at what they're doing in hockey. I know football will be the same, and I know this school and this athletic department believes the same. So as Coach Cannell continues here and we get closer to the start of spring football, we will start talking UConn football once again. So thanks for tuning into today's episode of Locked On UConn. As we move forward, we will have game previews on Wednesday. I mentioned both the men and women will be returned to action on Wednesday. We will obviously have you covered. We'll hear from Gino. We'll hear from Dan Hurley. We'll give you all the latest injury news, anything. We'll have you covered. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On UConn on social media, as well as anywhere you get your podcasts to get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On UConn ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Just head to lockedonucon.supercast.com to join the club. Again, lockedonucon.supercast.com to join the club. As I mentioned, tomorrow we will be previewing both the men's and women's return to action. If anything else breaks on the national landscape in the college basketball world, we will talk about that here on the show as long as it impacts UConn. Listen, going back to the start and what I started, the perception of the Big East and how UConn fits into the national landscape this year, I'm disappointed in how voters are looking at UConn and penalizing them for what is transpiring within the Big East this year. I think it's contingent upon the Big East Conference to invest more, as Dan Hurley has said and Rick Pitino has said. More money is needed if this is the new normal in college athletics. So we'll stay close. We'll preview basketball later this week. And as always, go Huskies!